Okay, so, there's been a lot of talk lately about hip hop and where it's headed, like where things are going.
Oh, yeah. Definitely a lot of chatter, a lot of back and forth. Yeah.
And, we wanted to dive into that a little bit today.
Yeah.
Let's see what's up with this whole thing.
Yeah, it's like, you see these headlines, you see the discussions online, and you're like, okay, what's the real story here? What's really going on?
Right, exactly. And, specifically, you've got Drake and Kendrick Lamar and DJ Akademiks all kind of in the mix here. And it seems like there are some serious divisions, some different paths that people are taking.
Absolutely. And I think that's what's so fascinating about this whole conversation, right? It's not just about the music itself, but it's about the culture and where it's going and who's driving it.
Right. And it seems like there's this movement back to the basics, like a return to the core of hip hop.
Yeah. I think there's definitely a sense of that, a focus on lyricism and storytelling and the roots of the genre.
And it almost feels like it's creating two sides, right?
Yeah.
There's one side that's all about going back to these core principles, and then there's another side that's maybe more focused on the mainstream or a different vibe.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there. It's this divergence of values almost, right? What do we prioritize in hip hop? Is it about the artistry or is it about something else?
Right, exactly. And when you look at Drake and Akademiks, it seems like they're kind of representing one of these sides.
Oh, absolutely. Their alliance is definitely a major focal point in this whole discussion.
Yeah, it's Akademiks has gone from being a commentator to almost an active participant in all of this.
For sure. I mean, his support for Drake is so vocal and so consistent that it's hard not to see him as a key player in this whole narrative.
And it makes you wonder what's driving that level of support from Akademiks? What's his motivation here?
I think part of it is just the nature of influence in today's world. Akademiks' platform benefits from being associated with someone like Drake.
Right. It's they both gain something from this alliance.
Yeah, exactly. It's mutually beneficial.
And there are even these whispers about coordination between Akademiks and Drake's team. Are they actively working together to shape this narrative?
It's hard to say for sure, but the timing of certain things, the way their messages align, it definitely makes you think.
Yeah, it's are we seeing a strategy here?
Possibly, and I think that's what makes this so interesting. It's you're trying to read between the lines and figure out what's really going on.
And then you have Akademiks' associations with these other figures, the people who are sometimes called clout chasers.
Yeah, that's a whole other layer to this.
Why is he aligning himself with these particular people?
It could be about building a broader base of support, even if it means including people who are controversial.
Right, it's quantity over quality, maybe?
Perhaps, and I think that also ties into this idea of different values.
Yeah.
What are the criteria for success in this world?
And you can't forget about that whole boat incident. Where Akademiks is playing SSS for you and basically dismissing Kendrick's music.
Oh, yeah, that was a moment for sure.
It's he was making a statement, right?
Absolutely. It was a very deliberate contrast between two different vibes, two different approaches to hip-hop.
And then you've got Akademiks aligning himself with Kanye West, too.
Yeah.
Particularly in our criticisms of Kendrick.
Right. It's forming this coalition almost based on shared opposition.
The enemy of my enemy is my friend.
Exactly. And that's an interesting dynamic to observe because it raises questions about what unites these different figures.
And then there was that meeting with DJ Vlad and Adam 22 that got so much attention.
Oh, yeah. That was a very symbolic gathering in many ways.
It felt like it represented a certain segment of hip-hop media,
Definitely. It's these are the people who are shaping the narrative in a particular way.
And it's so different from what you see with Kendrick. He's collaborating with people like Playboi Carti and Tyler, the Creator, artists who are really pushing boundaries.
Absolutely. It's a completely different approach to artistry and creativity.
And it makes you think about the motivations behind these choices, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is it just about music or is there something more going on?
That's the million-dollar question, right? Are we talking about genuine artistic visions or are there other factors at play?
Because there's this idea floating around that the Drake and Akademiks camp is maybe not as invested in the artistic depth of hip-hop. You know?
Maybe it's more about personal gain or maintaining a certain level of influence.
And that's resonating with a lot of fans.
Yeah.
There's this whole group that's becoming really vocal about their concerns about the direction of hip-hop.
For sure. And, Akademiks' platform definitely plays a role in amplifying those voices.
Right. It's he's giving them a megaphone in a way.
Exactly. And that can be a powerful thing, both for good and for bad.
So where does this all lead? What's the future of hip-hop if this division keeps growing?
That's hard to say, but I think there are some valid concerns about the potential for increased negativity, you know?
Right. It's like, will it become harder to just enjoy the music without all this baggage?
And there's also the risk of things escalating, you know? Could Drake and Akademiks become even more provocative in their approach?
It's definitely a possibility, but maybe there's a silver lining to all of this.
Yeah, for sure.
Like maybe this division will ultimately lead to more clarity,
Exactly. Like maybe it'll force everyone to define their values and their priorities.
And maybe that's a good thing in the long run, even if it's messy right now.
Absolutely. I think sometimes you need that kind of shakeup to really see where everyone stands.
So it sounds like we're in for a wild ride.
Yeah.
Hip hop is evolving and transforming right in front of our eyes.
Oh, yeah. This is a dynamic period for
Yeah.
sure. There's a lot happening, and it's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out.
Well, it all boils down to this tension between different visions, right? Like Drake and Akademiks on one side and Kendrick and his collaborators on the other.
Exactly. It's like two different paths, two different ideas about what hip hop is and what it should be.
And that's the question we leave you with. What do these sides represent? And what do they mean for the future of hip hop? What does it mean for the artists and for the fans? Think about it.
Yeah, it's a lot to unpack, but it's a conversation worth having for sure.
Thanks for joining us on the Deep Dive.
Always a pleasure.
We'll catch you next time.
See you then.
Bye.